So I have no idea how long this video is going to be when I finish recording it, but I feel like it's going to be a little bit on the longer side because, we're dealing with this kind of movie. But either way, I recently watched Killers of the Flower Moon. I can really only say one sentence that could get a lot of people into the seats or watch this. Killers of the Flower Moon is the latest movie from Martin Scorsese. I, Hearing that alone, I would say that a good amount of people could get convinced to watch it based off that alone, pretty much like Christopher Nolan. A movie that's pretty much almost been like half a decade in the making. Both Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio were attached to the movie in 2017. So this has been in the works for almost a half decade at this point. At least in terms of Scorsese's career, this is also a pretty big deal that his two of his main collaborators, DiCaprio and Robert De Niro, are in starring roles together for the first time in a Scorsese movie. This movie has had a lot of marketing, just bringing back, yes, this is the Scorsese crime epic that we were getting again. We're getting another one, which a lot of people like those. I do emphasize epic because this has a massive runtime. It's almost 3.5 hours long, which I will touch more on that later and how I feel about the runtime of it all. But I do feel that it earns the word epic, mainly because of what we're dealing with. The overall gist of this is that we're set in the 1920s Oklahoma under the Osage Nation, and oil is discovered under their land. So white people pretty much set up a conspiracy to murder as many of them as they can and get their land back. Personally, it was something I was unfamiliar with going into it. I had always known like something along the lines of this happened, but this is really the first time I am interacting with this time in history where it was very tragic. And of course, there is eventually that point where the FBI steps in, which originally this movie was from the perspective of, but was reworked, which was why it kind of took a while for it to really leave the ground and come out now, as opposed to a couple of years ago, since the development started in 2017. Instead of the FBI, we focus on Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Ernest Burkhart. He's coming back from the war to live with his uncle, William Hale, played by Robert De Niro, and he is just trying to figure out what is going on and just like what he's gonna do now since he got sent back from the war because he was injured, and we have to figure out like what is he gonna do? Is he gonna work for his uncle? What is he gonna do? And in terms of plot, I am gonna stop right there because there's a lot of spoilers in this. There's a lot that happens in this. Again, this is a 3.5 hour movie. A lot of shit goes down in this, and it is a very complex topic, and especially judging from how people are reacting to this movie, there are complex reactions to this. The big headline coming out of this movie in terms of the performances is Lily Gladstone, who plays Molly, who ends up being Ernest's wife. And pretty much everything has been saying, a lot of people have been saying that like she's the heart and soul of this movie, and she's also the best part of this movie, and I really have to agree. I feel like it would be highway robbery if Lily Gladstone didn't win the Oscar at this point. There is, at least compared to a lot of the scenes she has with DiCaprio, and just like he's going really over the top, which I'll share my thoughts on him in a little bit. He's going way over the top, and there is this quiet subtlety to Gladstone's performance that just really anchored the movie down and really held this emotional aspect of the whole movie that just really worked with me. And in my notes, I have this a little down further in my notes, but I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, mainly because I feel like the movie should have been focused on her, and that was probably my biggest criticism of this movie, because yes, there are a lot of people saying that this is a masterpiece, and I really don't. I think if you're going to be focusing on atrocities that occurred to the Osage and all of this, I feel like they should have been developed more as characters. Molly is the most developed out of the Osage characters in this, but I don't think it was enough, and I think it genuinely undercut what the movie is trying to do and really trying to say with this. Which is why I'm kind of shocked that we were focusing on Ernest the whole time, who was just an idiot. He is there's a whole different thing that I want to get into with Ernest, but I think with that I have to point out King Hale, played by Robert De Niro, and there are two kinds of Robert De Niros recently, and that's like the not giving any effort comedy, like mainly directed towards families that he's in, and there are also movies like this where he is pretty fucking scary in this, and it is, in my opinion, one of the best performances I've seen from him in a very long time. So I don't know if he's gonna win the Oscar, but I think it'd be a damn shame if he wasn't nominated, because he's definitely deserving of some kinds of awards praise for this. Back to DiCaprio though, I just feel like that he was not a great character to follow, mainly because he just was such an idiot all the time. Was basically following his uncle, who was, at least in my opinion, a very obviously horrible person. And whether or not we see Ernest really think in the back of his head that he's a bad person, or like we don't know if there's conflict with his uncle. He's following him blindly, and if there is conflict, I didn't really think it was shown that well at all. For something that is 3.5 hours long already, I feel like if that's a defining character trait, I think you should probably show that a little more. Other cast members that popped up, there are a lot of people in this. A lot of them are just in a couple scenes and do pretty well for the most part. Jesse Plemons, who plays like the FBI agent who gets sent down, is pretty incredible in this. I always love seeing Jesse Plemons in things, and pretty much always, like, especially in the movie when I was sitting there, because it's a while before he shows up, but I was thinking in my mind, finally, someone smart is showing up and doing shit, because just there's so much idiotic things happening, and I know that this was a true story. I know all of this happened, but just watching it, it was genuinely pretty infuriating to see what happened, and I'm gonna assume that's the point, but just I don't know. A pretty divisive aspect of this online in the littler schemes of things is Brendan Fraser. He pops up as one of Hale's lawyers in this. He's not in it too much, but a lot of people said that he is great. A lot of people said that he's pretty bad at it. And I think he did his job in playing like the cartoonishly evil lawyer. Obviously, I don't think it's an Oscar winner, but I think he did a good job. It was nice to see him in another movie again, outside of like, especially right after winning an Oscar for The Whale. So it's nice to see him actually get movie roles. I guess this is the part where I talk about the technical aspects now, and just this is a marvel technically in terms of the craft of this. This was a $200 million budget. Pretty much every set that you see was built for the movie, and it all looks great. It just across the board, costumes, just makeup as well. Leo's fake teeth is very unsettling, and just it's very strange to look at, and especially the production design just looks it just looks great. I also do have to point out the late Robbie Robertson's score. This was, to my knowledge, the last thing he worked on before he passed away, and I would say it's probably one of my favorite parts of the movie as well, up there with Lily Gladstone. And it has this weird ambient Americana feeling to it, and there are parts of this where it just had like this dread creeping in, almost like the white people in this movie. But just it really did its job. It's probably my favorite score of the year, and just really knocked it out of the park in a hell of a way for Robbie Robertson to go out. And now I guess this is where it comes to the runtime of the movie. This is like a tiny bit under 3.5 hours long, and at least we're going to use Oppenheimer as an example, since that's a 3-hour movie. I will say Oppenheimer made a 3-hour movie feel like a 2-hour movie, and there's nothing wrong with that. It kind of flew by, but I feel like I got everything I wanted from it. At least for Killers of the Flower Moon, though, I feel like it felt like 3.5 hours. That is definitely a big thing, but I don't think that is a bad thing in this case. Again, we are dealing with a very sensitive topic, in my opinion, that just really, it deserves this amount of time to get done. And just, I also think it's really well paced in a lot of areas. I know it's Scorsese's usual editor, Thelma Schoonmaker, on this, and she does a pretty good job as well. Another one of my favorite aspects of this is the editing. But now, obviously, no spoilers because the movie's out, and I do think, even though I don't think it's a masterpiece, I do think this is worth a watch. But I do have to mention the ending, which I'm not going to spoil, but it really felt like a cop-out to me. Again, no spoilers, I'm not saying anything about it, but it really felt, towards the end, I was finally getting some sort of emotional hook that wasn't with Molly. I'm not going to say which character, but I really started feeling it in this. And then it felt like they cut to something, and it rushes through the rest of a good chunk of the story, and I just didn't like that. It felt like, at least in this instance, it felt like a Wes Anderson-esque ending, or at least along those lines, and just didn't stick the landing. And I know that a lot of people really like that ending, which I can see why. Again, not spoiling, but it just didn't work for me. Maybe that could change if I watch this again at some point. It's gonna be a while. I still haven't rewatched The Irishman. This is gonna be a while. And yeah, I guess those are my thoughts on Killers of the Flower Moon. I don't, again, since a lot of people think it's a masterpiece and one of the best movies of the year, I don't think that, personally. But I think there are deep flaws. I think the main focus should have been on Molly, and I'm kind of surprised that it wasn't. But I think this is a technical marvel. There is enough here that I really enjoy that I can just kind of put myself at ease of some of the choices made in the movie that I am not a massive fan of. I'm gonna give Killers of the Flower Moon a 7 out of 10. I know it seems low, but don't worry. That means I still like this movie. Just, there are a couple of decisions, again, not really focusing on Molly, which is, again, kind of a shocker to me. But I really feel like, to really hammer it home, even with that weird ending to me, there should have been, the Osage community should have been more developed in this and have more focus on them instead of Leonardo DiCaprio and his fake teeth. All right, have you seen Killers of the Flower Moon? What did you think about it? Are you gonna, since this is a massive movie, are you just gonna wait for it to go on to Apple TV? Because that's where it's gonna be, since this is an Apple movie. But either way, let me know if you've seen Killers of the Flower Moon. What did you think about it? The good stuff, bad stuff? Down in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you in the next video. See ya.